Hello everybody, welcome back to Case Studies with the Biz Doc. I'm Tom Ellsworth. This week, another request from the audience, well, sorta. You had asked for a number of companies and one of them was Nike. I know a lot about Nike. I used to wear Nike running shoes growing up, and also I knew a lot about Nike and their Tiger Woods line and golf clubs that they eventually got out of the golf equipment business. But there was a lot of case studies in there, but one stood out for me, and it was the dawn of the Air Jordan, and the negotiation went into it. So this week we're going to dive in and we're going to look at how the negotiation unfolded and how what Jordan wanted and what Mike ended up with were very, very different things. And this week there will be two core points, and the first will be have the guts to go big, but not so big that you'd kill yourself. But don't be afraid of the big deal. Even if you're a small company, there could be big deals in your size that make a difference for you. Don't be afraid to go big, but never get yourself killed. The second would be learn the art of negotiating with win-win steps and clauses that actually work for everybody. Not every contract has to have nothing but catches, and we're going to see some of that this week. So now let's dive into the negotiation and the story of how the Air Jordan shoe came to market and everything that unfolded to get it there. First of all, we go back to, many of you may be familiar with the Air Jordan shoe. There's a tale that goes that once upon a time the Air Jordans were banned by the NBA. Well, they kind of were. That's not really the story. There's a little bit of folklore behind that. Fans may remember that at the very beginning there was like a $5,000 fine that happened a couple times, and yeah, there was some of that. But there's truth and fiction in the whole story. But it did boil down to that the NBA at the very beginning, they wanted all the teams to wear shoes that had a lot of white in the color of the shoe, and they wanted the shoes to match with the rest of the team. And at that time, Commissioner David Stern was not amused and didn't like it when Jordan came out on court wearing some very dark black and red shoes that matched the colors of the Chicago Bulls. As a matter of fact, they looked pretty hot. They looked nice, but it wasn't what the league wanted, and so yes, the league came out and said, no, we don't want there. So you can read lots of versions of that story and a lot of things, but that was the first day on court. But let's go back in time to find out, how did Michael Jordan end up in those Air Jordans on court getting fined by the NBA at the start of what would be marketing and shoe history? Going back in time, he graduates from the University of North Carolina. University of North Carolina was coached by Dean Smith, a Hall of Fame person and a Hall of Fame coach. Dean Smith at that time had a contract with Converse, and he was paid about $10,000 a year to get his team, the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, one of the 3 or 4 legendary programs in college basketball history with like UCLA and Kansas and Duke. These were the legends of college basketball. And for 10 grand, you could get a coach in those days to make sure his players wore your sneakers. Seems like a small amount of money today, but back then, that was, I guess, pretty impressive. Nonetheless, Dean Smith was paid for that for Converse. But when Michael Jordan graduated, he really wanted to be an Adidas. He loved Adidas. He loved the brand. He loved things about it. He wanted to be sponsored by Adidas when he came into the NBA. But Adidas, they had their own issues. You see, in 1978, just a few years prior, Adi Dassler, which is where Adidas gets its name, but he had passed away, and his wife, Kathy, was running the business. In addition, she had brought in her son, Horst, and their 4 daughters, and they were all running various divisions of Adidas. And to make matters worse, all the son-in-laws married to those women were also involved too. So Adidas didn't have all the direction that Adi Dassler had given it because he had passed away. To make it worse, now the mom, the wife, Kathy, was coming under bad health, and actually she was in very poor health and would pass away within a year. So Adidas, the legendary company Adidas, was in no position in terms of leadership, consistency, to really sit down and make a real run at Michael Jordan. This disappointed him, and Jordan's agent said, let's go talk to Converse. Converse is sponsoring everybody. They're the basketball shoe. Let's go talk to them. Jordan didn't really want to do that. He really didn't want to do that. He went to the meeting only because Dean Smith had a relationship with Converse, and he said, okay, my coach, the man I love, the man that coached me, we won national championship together, Okay, I'll go see Converse. So they go in to see Converse, and Converse was very, very confident. And they say, look, we have Magic, we have Larry Bird, we have Dr. J, we got people like Mark Aguirre, we got all these players. We are the basketball shoe, and we are the kings of basketball shoes. And Michael Jordan was there with his dad, and they asked, well, where does Michael fit in? And they looked around, and they didn't offer a very different answer. They just said, well, we know Mike's great. We'll treat him just like we do the other pro players, $100,000 a year. And they were asking, well, is there anything more to it? Is there anything innovative? And now on Converse side, they're thinking, wow, what's wrong with this guy? We're going to teach him, we're going to treat him, just like Magic Johnson, treat him just like Larry Bird, and give him $100,000 just like them. And he hasn't even walked on the court in the NBA yet. Come on now, this is what we're going to do. And still, Jordan and his dad were like, nothing innovative, no other ideas? No, there wasn't. And so they left. So Converse really had no chance. And also, by the way, at that time, Converse was already kind of losing its footing because Nike was signing coaches and doing better than Converse was. And other shoe companies were making inroads. And Converse was also last to do like innovative fabrics and to do things like making a basketball shoe out of pure leather, was something that Nike had already been investigating. So really, Converse already was kind of in the background sliding, even though they saw themselves as the king. The next thing that happened is they get a call from a very unusual source, O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was working for the Spot Built brand as a marketing consultant. It was part of his sponsorship agreement with them because when he was in the NFL, the last part of him being in the NFL, he wore cleats that were called Juice Mobiles, and that was his connection to Spot Built. So they made these they made these football cleats for O.J. And O.J. is saying, we got to make basketball shoes for Michael Jordan, and let me tell you, I know something about marketing because I'm everywhere. And in those days, O.J. was everywhere. He was with Hertz Rental Car. He was a really beloved guy that had a very, very level reputation. And so he had all kinds of sponsorships. And he was saying, watch this guy out of North Carolina. Michael Jordan is the next me. That's what O.J. said. And in his consulting role to Sport Built, he said, listen, you got to go get this guy. So the VP of marketing, which was the son of the CEO and owner of Sport Built, says, hey, Dad, what do we do? And he said, if that's the story and I'm believing it and I'm trusting it, you go get Michael Jordan. And here's the quote, don't leave a dime at the door. In other words, let's go get him. So Sport Built wants to go out and get him. And so Michael Jordan and his agent went to see them, and they said, we will make you the star of our company. You will be the marketing icon of our company. You will be the whole thing. And so that was pretty impressive. But, Sport Built versus Adidas, Michael's heart was still with Adidas. And Sport Built, big in cleats, but not exactly in other areas. So they left. Michael Jordan's agent next would make some of the phone calls and arrangements that would change the course of history in basketball shoes. He spoke to Nike in basketball shoes. And here's what he did. He called Nike and he talked to Rob Strasser and he said, Rob, I want to come in and see you and I'm bringing Michael Jordan and we want to talk about basketball shoes. And Rob Strasser did many big deals at Nike, and Falk, Michael Jordan's agent, emphasized to him how big and important this was going to be. Well, he calls Michael, and Michael says, I don't want to go see Nike. I don't want to go to more meetings. I want you to call Adidas and get me Adidas. And he says, look, they're in turmoil. They got these things going on. The kids are running the company. Come on, Mike. And he said, no, I want to go see Adidas. Well, Falk called Michael Jordan's parents, James and Dolores, and here's what he said. I need Michael to be at the meeting with Nike. I need him to go to Oregon. And so he gets a call back and says, okay, I'm going to Oregon, but my parents, James and Dolores, are coming along. And they all went. When they got there, they met with Strasser. They also met with Peter Moore, a designer, and Howard White and Sonny Vaccaro. And Sonny Vaccaro is now legendary and very well known for, he was the guy that said, this is the guy. Michael Jordan is the guy, and he is going to be a huge hit for this company, and we're going to get him. And he was in the meeting, these guys were in the meeting, and they laid it out to him. And they said, this is what we're going to do for you. And they played a video of a song called Jump by the Pointer Sisters. And they put a lot into their presentation. And Michael sat back and listened, and then he said, you know, one of the reasons I like Adidas is because they make a slightly lower cut shoe rather than the tall ones you made. And rather than Nike telling them, well, you'll wear what we give you, and that was pretty typical what would happen with shoe contracts, they said, well, tell me about that. Maybe we'll adjust that. Maybe we'll design it differently. And that impressed Jordan because now they're talking about adapting the shoe to him. They don't just want to put his name on it and hand him a check. They involved him in the shoe. That impressed him, and that would be important. They took a little bit of break and they went into a separate conference room and made even more presentations about how they would market it and what they would do. And the president of Nike, Phil Knight, came in to talk. And he said his piece and he explained what they were going to do. And a great meeting was had. But Jordan didn't say yes, at least not yet. He left with an offer. And the offer he left was $500,000 for 5 years. A $2.5 million contract. Remember, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were getting $100,000 each from Converse. And recently, James Worthy had gotten a deal from New Balance for $180,000. This was an over-the-top contract, but it wasn't just that. They said, we think we're going to go places with you, and we want you to participate in the upside of Nike. We're also including stock. We're giving you stock in Nike that could make this deal worth $7 million to you. So there you had Nike putting up to $7 million on the table. Unheard of at those times. It was over the top. Nothing could say, we want you more than that. But they also wanted to protect themselves. And here's an important lesson in negotiation here. When Nike came back and said, we think you're going to be monstrous. We think this is going to be monstrous. But here's the criteria. If one of these things doesn't happen, we can get out of the contract early. If you don't win Rookie of the Year, if you're not named to the All-Star team, if you don't average 20 points a game, in one of your first 2 years, we could then opt out a little early in the contract, meaning that they put all these chips on the table, and if he doesn't turn out to be this incredible basketball hero, this incredible All-Star, they could get out. Well, they looked at it, and Michael Jordan's side said, okay, so if he doesn't do those things, he can get out. But what if he does those things and we still sell shoes? And people like Mike, and maybe he's, we think he's going to be huge, but what if he's an average player, but people love him and he sells a lot of shoes? And they said, okay, then if he sells a minimum level of certain $1 million worth of shoes, we'll stay in the contract. So that was a good negotiating point to say, I want you to do this, but I have to do that. And if I do that, then you have to do that. Back and forth. That is a good two-sided contract. That's not simply, I'm the boss, I'm writing the check, here it is. So don't ever be afraid to figure out how can you put like win-win situations into your contracts like that. And whether you're a small company or a big company, you can put clauses in that really benefit you as well as benefit your business partner. So there it was. They left Nike with that deal. And when they left, Jordan didn't say yes. He went back home and instructed his agent to call Adidas and say, here's the deal. If you'll offer me anything close to this, I'm still signing with you, Adidas, because that's where his heart was. Well, guess what happened? Adidas couldn't do it, and they weren't going to do it, and they said, that's it. So now they kind of knew that they were going to go with Nike, and the poor guys over at Spot Built, believe it or not, they offered more cash than Nike did. They were ready to just kill the company to get Michael Jordan. But they said, no, we're not going to do that. Nike's making the shoe. They're going to adapt the shoe. They're putting marketing behind the shoe. They got a lot of marketing muscle. We're going with Nike. So they went with Nike. And by the way, speaking of marketing, one of the things that Falk, Michael Jordan's agent, asked to have in the contract was that they would spend $1 million on marketing the Air Jordan shoe. Well, the season rolls around, Now we've got all this negotiated, we have a star, we've got sneakers, we've got everything set up, and the season rolls around. Everything went right, even the things that went wrong went right. The shoes that Michael Jordan wore on court that eventually David Stern, then the commissioner of the NBA, said, hey, wait a minute, you know, all the shoes of the team should match, and those aren't the team colors, even though they were the team colors, red and black. David Stern just didn't like the fact that they were really a lot of black and red, and they're sort of dark sneakers. They didn't look like white sneakers the way they used to, and he wasn't ready for that. And so he fined them. And that led to a TV commercial, which was very funny. And by the way, again, those were airships that had been designed and colored the color of the Ultimate Air Jordans, black and red. Those weren't even the Air Jordan sneakers that would eventually be on the market, which is a little trivia in the background for you. But nonetheless, Nike puts out an ad, and it said this: on October 15th, Nike created a revolutionary new basketball shoe. On October 18th, the NBA threw them out of the game. Fortunately, the NBA can't keep you from wearing them. And every kid wanted a pair of these Air Jordans. Can you imagine that marketing muscle? The NBA said no, but that doesn't keep you from wearing them. Well, guess what? Michael Jordan averaged 28.2 points a game in his rookie season with the Chicago Bulls and was Rookie of the Year. So the contract was locked in thanks to that performance, and every kid suddenly wanted to be like Mike. And there are other things that are part of this that were really interesting, not related to negotiation, like Nike put those shoes out there at $65 a pair, which was unheard of. You know, there's so many things in this story that are unheard of. You know, $65 basketball sneakers in 1985, I mean, that really got some parents revved up. Well, apparently not all the parents were revved up, because some of the parents paid up, because Nike sold $70 million worth of Air Jordans by the end of the basketball season, and over $100 million in total Air Jordan shoes and merchandise that year. And then that annual report, Phil Knight said something, which I love this quote because he's a marketer, and I came from marketing when I graduated school. It was, you know what? This was the perfect combination of a new high-quality product, our marketing, and an athlete endorsement. And it was an athlete that matched, because Michael Jordan was all about performance. He was all about scoring, but he was also this compelling, wonderful personality who had won a national championship at North Carolina, and was a nice guy. He was a good guy, and he was a heavy competitor. And you would see him doing dunks with his tongue sticking out. He was such an icon of the game so quickly. And Sonny Vaccaro of Nike was right. He's the guy, he's the guy, he's the guy. That's what Sonny Vaccaro would say over and over. This is our guy, this is the guy. Well, how have they done since then? That's a great story, about $70 million, 28.2 points, Rookie of the Year, 84-85, you know, the iconic Jumpman logo in 23. But where did they go from there? Let's take a look at some stats now to see just how massive this brand became. Today, Air Jordans are 58% of the basketball shoe market. That's pretty amazing. They are 85% of the basketball shoes over $100. And they are 77% of the basketball shoes for kids under 18. Look at these dominant figures. And by the way, kids under 18, they've only seen film of Michael Jordan. He retired long ago. They haven't seen him play live. So all these teenagers, they're like wearing Air Jordans, and it's a brand, and it's transcended his athletic career to become this enduring brand of athletic shoes, basketball shoes. And by the way, speaking of shoes, if you took the Air Jordan brand and compared it to the total shoe market in the United States, total shoes, it's 10.8% of the shoe market in the United States. And by the way, it sells 8 times what LeBron James does. 8 times. When you think about LeBron James and being an icon of basketball today, and the success that he is, and coming back to Cleveland, and winning for the city, and all the things that he does, and Air Jordan still sells 8 times LeBron James, there's only one word for that, and that is damn! That's amazing! Equally amazing is Air Jordan, within a year, is going to potentially pass the $3 billion a year in sales revenue. It's amazing, and it's an amazing story. Well, that's this week's case study, and that is how the negotiation between Michael Jordan and Converse and Adidas and Nike and Sportville came together that brought us the Air Jordan brand. It was a brand that got created by Nike, who did everything they could to win, and those 2 points: stand tall. Have the guts to go big, but don't go so big that you kill your company. But you don't have to be as big as Nike to do a big deal that perhaps puts your company on the map and takes you further. But don't kill yourself. And point 2, in the art of negotiating, find ways to put win-win steps in for everybody, because that's how some of the greatest deals in history, like the original contract for Air Jordan, get made. So that's the story this week. Now I need the pillow. The pillow, there we go. Please subscribe to Valuetainment to get more of case studies by the Biz Doc and the best content on the internet for entrepreneurs. Until next time, I'm Tom Ellsworth, and I hope I left you better than I found you.